Russians really love primitive symbols. Vodka, balalaika, a mummy in the city center.
That is it. They only left the brushwood.
It's amazing, but even the last drunk lying in a puddle by the fence confidently takes pride in the ballet The Nutcracker, as if he has anything to do with it.
I just have a day off today.
But above all, Russians truly adore phallic symbols. The Sarmat missile, the Ostankino Tower, and of course, the Crimean Bridge, whose size is obviously meant to compensate for the small geostrategic appendage of the pale dictator.
Russia is truly capable of carrying out remarkable world-class infrastructure projects like these. After all, it is not only the largest bridge in Russia, but also the longest bridge in Europe.
The Crimean Bridge has become Russia's main pride over the past 10 years. It's a kind of Colossus of Rhodes on top of the Tower of Babel riding the Pyramid of Cheops. The whole world was supposed to be amazed and become bipolar.
They fooled us just so blatantly, absolutely and shamelessly deceived us.
Hymns were composed about the Crimean Bridge, children were named after it, and bizarre movies were made about it.
Welcome to the famous Crimean Bridge, the biggest bridge in Russia.
During the filming of this half-baked movie, the Bobrov family siphoned off hundreds of millions of rubles. The movie about the bridge ended up being almost as expensive as the bridge itself.
Alexei Gromov writes to the Ministry of Culture, demanding that Simonian receive 100 million rubles without competitions or selections as a non-repayable, non-refundable grant.
The Crimean Bridge became Putin's personal construction project. In reality, it's not even a bridge, but rather handcuffs that have chained the occupied peninsula to Mordor.
The ceremony was attended by the country's president, Vladimir Putin. He drove across the bridge behind the wheel of a Kamaz truck. The Crimean Bridge was opened by the bridge builders.
But in the end, the Crimean Bridge became not an achievement, but a curse for Russia, a real headache and a Damocles sword on which the very existence of the entire state depends. Because of the sacredness and symbolism that Kremlin propaganda has pumped into the Crimean Bridge, its destruction would be a tremendous psychological blow and a point of no return for Muscovy. Now, in the eyes of the majority of the population of the Russian Reich, the fall of the bridge means the fall of the entire empire and a personal defeat and catastrophe for Putin.
The feeling is just, I don't know, I have goosebumps all over right now, but we haven't entered the bridge yet, we're still just approaching it. The bridge! This is so awesome!
Above you, the sun shines majestically, even though this plan is quite cunning and not simple at all. We are building a huge bridge on the planet, the Russian, the longest, the Crimean Bridge.
Oh, you Crimean Bridge, how far from simple you are.
Sean, Khan, the one and only, the legendary.
Naturally, Ukraine will, of course, do everything possible to cut this Russian appendix out of its territory.
Will the Crimean Bridge burn down this year? Well, I hope so. It needs to come to an end.
Connecting Crimea with Taman is not Putin's invention. One of the first to come up with this idea was his spiritual mentor Adolf Hitler. During the occupation, the Nazis really did try to build a bridge across the Kerch Strait in 1942. And the goal was the same as Putin's, to provide convenient logistics for their invading troops and to turn Crimea into a military base and staging ground, because sea transport was vulnerable to attacks from the Soviet fleet and air force. Just like now, the Ork's sea transport is vulnerable to Ukrainian drones.
Damn it, really, damn it!
It's obvious that Putin was inspired by the Third Reich's plans and literally adopted them. The Nazis considered Crimea an important strategic point for further operations in the region. In exactly the same way, after building the bridge, Putin used it for further invasion of Ukraine.
A coincidence? I don't think so.
The Nazi project envisioned the construction of a railway and automobile bridge based on the design of the Soviet bridge, which the Soviets didn't manage to finish in '41 because they were retreating. The Germans also didn't manage to finish the bridge because they were retreating in '43. and in general the whole idea turned out to be very expensive, so the Third Reich abandoned it. 9. It was only in 1944 that the USSR finally managed to build a temporary railway bridge on the unfinished German remnants. But it was literally swept away by ice. Since then, it was decided not to mess with bridges in the Kerch Strait anymore and to make do with ferries. Then, Crimea became part of Ukraine, and the issue basically became irrelevant because all supplies came from Ukraine. But in the 21st century, a new Nazi state appeared in the world, and Russia, following in the best traditions of Adolf Aloisovich, nevertheless erected this marvel of fascist architecture.
From now on, figuratively speaking, Crimea is no longer an island. Crimea is now forever connected to the mainland of our vast country by the solid foundation of the bridge.
The euphoria faded quickly, because it turned out that Putin had built the largest target in human history. The Crimean Bridge could basically be called the Crimean shooting range. With the start of the full-scale invasion, the Crimean Bridge, to put it mildly, started taking hits from the front, from the back, from above, from the side, and from below. On October 8, 2022, Ukrainian intelligence carried out an elegant operation called A Package from Your Boy. A truck exploded on the Crimean Bridge, which was coming from the Krasnodar region. It blew up at the exact moment when a train carrying fuel was passing by on the bridge.
Just look, the Crimean Bridge is on fire. It just went off 2 minutes ago. Exactly 6 seconds, exactly.
Can you see anything at all out there right now?
They blew up the bridge, right?
The bridge unfortunately did not remain intact. Several spans collapsed and traffic across it was shut down. On July 17, 2023, Putin's cuticle was attacked by Ukrainian surface drones, which blew up part of the roadbed.
When we hit the target successfully, it was a real explosion of emotions. All men are a bit like children. Everyone started jumping around.
As a result, the Kremlin frantically began building massive defenses around the bridge. They brought in air defense systems from all over the country, military ships and naval barriers. The strait was blocked with barges, rusty ships and buoys. So much anti-aircraft equipment was brought in that the entire European part of Russia was left completely exposed and defenseless against Ukrainian drones. Moscow is spending colossal resources, human, technical, and financial, to protect the bridge. But even despite all this, it keeps getting hit, and sooner or later, it will be destroyed anyway.
There will be many surprises, both at sea and in the sky.
Concerning Crimea and concerning other temporarily occupied territories.
These drones are modified jet skis, which the Ukrainian armed forces have learned to convert into kamikaze drones. Presumably one of them is shown in the video footage. According to some reports, such drones can carry up to half a ton of explosives. At the moment of the terrorist attack, an American MQ-9 Reaper reconnaissance and strike UAV was flying over the Black Sea. In fact, no one is even trying to hide anything.
The Crimean Bridge is truly the crystal vase of the Putin regime. Fragile, ostentatious, and expensive showmanship, much like a Fabergé egg. But this particular Putin egg, however, has no real cultural value, only legal value, as one of the many pieces of evidence of his crimes. Everyone has already forgotten how Putin pompously opened the bridge himself. Now this structure is constantly being closed due to the threat of bombings and is firmly associated with something temporary and dangerous. The mood among the occupiers in Crimea itself is also very gloomy. More and more of the visiting Lapton-footed animals are getting back on their skis and returning to their native swamp haven. Those who moved to Crimea after 2014 are now literally sitting on their suitcases, praying that the bridge will hold out until the moment they urgently need to escape. None of them have any doubt anymore that Crimea will be deoccupied.
I really don't want to leave Crimea or Alushka. It's just so wonderful and great here.
You've gotten used to it, right?
I've really gotten used to it here. It honestly felt just like living in my very own home. Everything is so wonderfully warm and homely.
According to experts, half of the newcomers will flee even before deoccupation begins. Which is logical, because by the time Ukrainian defense forces enter, the Crimean Bridge is unlikely to still be intact.
It's terrible what happened, of course. The events were awful. I don't even know how to get out of here now.
It's a shame about the bridge. It's all bad.
I feel sorry for the bridge, and now it's a problem figuring out how to leave.
Lately, residents of Crimea have been actively buying up real estate in the Krasnodar region. What could that mean?
It's not clear at all.
The so-called Russian world is now actively preparing for a mass relocation of vatniks back to those regions that are especially rich in hawthorn tincture and, unfortunately, domestic violence. And as it stands, they really don't have much time left before the Kerch Bridge inevitably turns into what will be known as the Kerch Coral Reef.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.